All right. Flush the bombers, get the subs in launch mode. We are at DEFCON 1.
For about a year, NASCAR has been pushing publicly to have a street race in the city of Chicago. Now, in front of anything that we say today, I or any other fans talk about today, I think we need to at least admire that NASCAR is definitely being bold with their new moves, and it's something that is still relatively new for the sport. But we need to talk about the report that came out from Adam Stern on Friday. In it, he and Sports Business Journal report that NASCAR is getting closer to announcing a new street race in Chicago that would start next year per sources. Not yet clear on who would lose the race, but NASCAR appears open to dropping a road course, and Road America doesn't have a deal for 2023. So there's a ton to unpack here between the possible street race, Road America gone, no Chicagoland for another year, and a possible opening for a new 4th of July weekend race. Let's start off with the part of it that is pissing the most racing fans off. Moving on from Road America. Road America is a historic motorsports venue for the Midwest. Unlike most tracks in the NASCAR schedule, Road America has shown that it can survive without NASCAR just fine. They went 67 years without the Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series has only been a part of the track's storied history for 13 years as of 2022. So, this track will survive and thrive without any NASCAR series if it ever comes to that. But what it could do is piss off quite a large contingent of Midwestern racing fans. Much like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, fans at Road America are extremely loyal to their track, and on top of that, they take things very personally as well, and rightfully so. In 2021, there were well more than 100,000 people at the Cup race. To put it in perspective, only Daytona and Watkins Glen have consistently brought in that many fans for the past 5 or 6 years, and so on and so far. So I have to wonder, how will they feel as NASCAR seems to have pretty much used them as a Midwest stopgap to get more non-racing fans from the big city of Chicago. What this sounds like is a trend that NASCAR has had for decades now, of leaving their own hardened fans behind, or racing fans in general behind, for other fans who aren't really that big into racing and are completely different and completely separated from racing culture. Tons of people who were at Road America were there for the first time for a NASCAR race because it was Road America. Plus, this track is one of a very few in NASCAR anymore that could be a long-term staple of the schedule. So burning this bridge off in this way could prove more harmful for them than good in the long term. Now, of course, the meat of this story comes from the Chicago street course idea. This is an ambitious idea to say the least, but I really question NASCAR's thinking here on using the slot in the schedule from the track that seems to be both a fan and driver favorite in Road America. It seems like a way to poison the well from the very beginning on what NASCAR is trying to make a major event. The thinking behind this event does make sense on a marketing perspective, bringing NASCAR to the masses.
And we give it back to you, the people.
Where I question this plan is in the same way that I question the Clash at the Coliseum, where I will admit, I was wrong, and I actually really like that one. But the question is the location. Chicago is a location that, by NASCAR's design in coming here, is not one that caters to racing fans. It also is not one that is all it's cracked up to be, in my opinion. Having been in and out of Chicago for a majority of my life from time to time, due to living in northern Illinois for the majority of my life, I'm going to say something that may not be popular when it comes to talking about Chicago. As a city, it's overrated. It's congested, polluted, the air quality is bad, and there is high amounts of crime. There's a reason that in Illinois we called it Chirac. The sports culture is also overly inflated in the national media as one that's rabid at all times, no matter how the teams do. Look at many of the historic teams that are in Chicago and the ones that make the most airwaves, like the Bears, Cubs, Bulls, and Blackhawks. The stadiums and arenas are only full when these teams are winning and fans get the best out of everything. Soldier Field looked like a ghost town even before 2020 because the Bears were doing so awful. You have to question what the fan response is going to be after the excitement and the hype of the first year wears off. And this is going to be because of some of the inherent nature of street courses. Street courses and the racing lines on them are very narrow. Being narrow with tracks in general usually means it's going to be a little bit harder to pass and hard to have good racing. That, along with the poor sight lines, won't exactly make this a great spectator event to be at in person for these fans that NASCAR is reaching out to. Now add in how much NASCAR will have to pay and Chicago will have to change to do this kind of event and make it happen. There may be a real possibility that the street race is a one-off because simply it's too expensive. Unlike the Coliseum, this circuit won't be in a closed location where you know what it's going to cost every single year, and it will take a ton more work to make it a returning date on the schedule. So many are rightfully asking what the return on investment is going to be on this race, especially when there's a growing movement for the Chicagoland Speedway to return over in Joliet. Online, as well as in the city of Joliet, fans have seemed to have realized what they didn't appreciate before. The city has been pushing hard now to get a race back more and more, and the track seems to be kept up to date and race ready. The track, contrary to what many think, has not been sold and is not going to be torn down. NASCAR owns it and actually has started hiring on some staff, from what reports are again, to have upkeep on the track. So I still am not saying that the track won't have racing one day. If anything, the street race could be a good setup, seeing how in the short term it could bump up the area interest in NASCAR for Chicago and the Chicagoland area as a whole. And then once the street course has passed and done what it was intended to do, the Chicagoland Speedway reopens and is all that's left for the general Chicago area, and people flock to that track again, and you have a renewed and revamped event. Especially seeing how the intermediate program in Cup is probably the best it's been in at least 2 decades. So that can be an option, and if it is the plan, it's the best possible one they can have. But all of this also leads to a big question that the powers that be who create and modify the NASCAR schedule will need to answer. What do you do with the coveted 4th of July weekend date? After decades of Daytona racing on this weekend, the 4th of July was an Indianapolis date for a year as a way to revamp the Brickyard 400. But after only a year, NASCAR moved it to Road America. So, after 3 years, we've had 2 tracks use this once traditional date. I see this going in 2 different ways. The first option is having the Chicago Street Course on Independence Day weekend. It'd be a quick way to draw more eyes onto the event and maybe even legitimize it as a primetime NBC event. The second option that I can see is the one I truly see happening, and that is that New Atlanta Superspeedway will be used on this date. Superspeedway racing is a huge draw for NASCAR fans and non-NASCAR fans alike, and NASCAR knows this. The 4th of July weekend is a huge one for sports viewership as well, and just as the tradition of Daytona used to, Atlanta could maximize the viewership on this date. No matter what happens with any of these options or any of these different talking points, it's a sure bet that massive changes in NASCAR as the sport as a whole are afoot. Now, with that, I want to pass this one on to you. What are your thoughts on Chicago's street course idea? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.